There are things a man can never learn from books, like how a single glance can shake his entire inner world. Not because she's more beautiful than others, not because she's exceptionally sharp, but because there's something about her unexplainable, untouchable, and unnamed. And he, no matter how hard he tries to stay rational, cannot ignore that presence. No touch needed, no words. Just a moment of silence is enough for his heart to speak. This video doesn't teach you how to flirt. It doesn't give you techniques to make someone fall for you. It simply reminds you that sometimes what stays in a woman's memory isn't sweet talk, but a truth that escaped before it could be hidden. If you've ever looked at someone and thought, you have no idea how hard it is not to touch you, then maybe this video is for you. There's something about you that drives me crazy, and I can't quite name it. It's not a compliment, it's a mystery, a sentence that doesn't ask for a reply, but makes someone endlessly wonder. He had met many women, beautiful, charming, intelligent, but with her there was something he couldn't explain, couldn't label, couldn't touch with logic. Whenever she entered the room, the air shifted, not because she tried to stand out, but because she was present. He didn't say she was beautiful, though she might be. He didn't say he liked her, though that might be true. He just said a truth that he himself didn't fully understand. And then he went silent. She might smile softly, or be surprised, or ask, "Why? What about me drives you crazy?" But the strange thing is, he doesn't answer. Because not every feeling comes with clarity, and it's that very ambiguity that keeps her up at night. Women aren't just attracted to answers. They are drawn to questions without solutions, when they themselves are the question. Stoic philosophy teaches us to master emotion. But mastery doesn't mean suppression. It means knowing when to let a feeling exist, like incense in a quiet room, without trying to smother it, nor rushing to clear it away. And that sentence, "I can't name it," is exactly that, an ungraspable essence. It doesn't demand belief nor understanding. It simply exists and leaves a lingering trace. And then she begins thinking about you more than she expected. Not because you're too romantic, not because you tried too hard to impress, but because you left a space she hasn't figured out how to fill. And if the first sentence was a mystery that pulled her into a game of discovery, the next compliment is where you gently pull back the curtain and show her a glimpse of danger. I probably shouldn't say this, but damn, you're dangerous. You don't say this like a cheap pickup line. You don't smirk, wink, or add a half smile. You say it like it slipped out before you even realized. Because sometimes even the most stoic man has a moment where he loses control, and that's when he's most real. I probably shouldn't say this, but damn, you're dangerous. Some words aren't planned. They don't come from logic. They escape like a cold wind in the middle of summer, making both people stop and look at each other differently. One evening, under a light rain, they sheltered beneath the awning of an old bookstore. She said something, short, sharp, teasing, and he laughed. Not because it was funny, but because he realized he was playing a game where she made the rules. And then, without knowing why, he shook his head and said, "I probably shouldn't say this, but damn, you're dangerous." In that moment, everything went quiet. No honking, no rain. Only her widened eyes and a smile forming but not yet shaped. Not because she was surprised, but because she knew she had just touched something real. Dangerous. A word rarely used for women, unless it comes from deep within a man. And when it's spoken, it's not an insult. It's an acknowledgement that her presence has power beyond safety. You're saying she makes you unsure how long you can stay in control. You're admitting there's something, her gaze, her intelligence, the way she holds your eyes without blinking, that makes you feel exposed. And women feel that instantly, not because they're weak, but because they're sensitive to truth. They're not drawn to the strongest man. They're drawn to the man strong enough to admit he's shaken. Stoicism never tells you to be cold. It teaches you to know when to hold and when to have the courage to be moved. And when you look at her truly and say, I probably shouldn't say this, but damn, you're dangerous. You're not just flattering her. You're granting her power without asking for anything in return. And power doesn't come from being praised. It comes from being felt. There's something strange that happens when you call a woman dangerous. You strip away the masks and pull her into a wordless dance where every glance is a question and every silence a skipped heartbeat. She begins watching you more closely, not just hearing what you say, but noticing what you don't. The way you look at her, then look away. The way you fall silent when she brushes your hand. The faint furrow of your brow when she laughs at someone else's joke. And then in a quiet moment, when both of you know something unspoken is rising between you, you breathe in gently, your eyes fixed on hers, and say, "You have no idea how hard it is not to touch you." That sentence was never planned. It came after a stretch of silence, when warm yellow lights brushed against her face, when your fingers laced together just to avoid brushing hers, when everything inside you wrestled, self-control and desire. It's no longer a compliment. It's a confession, a temporary surrender, but one made with integrity. Because you don't act on it. You keep the distance. You don't reach for her. You simply breathe out and tell the truth. And in that moment, she feels more than any embrace or caress could ever give. She sees your strength, not because you advanced, but because you held back. Once, a man sat beside the woman he adored. They had been laughing, telling stories. Then came a pause. He looked at her. She looked back. And he said, "You have no idea how hard it is not to touch you." She smiled faintly, tilting her head. But inside, the words didn't drift by like a breeze. They settled, and they made her think, so, what's holding him back? What would happen if he let go? And those questions began to grow. Every time she thought about him, not because he did something wrong, but because he hadn't done anything at all. Women don't just crave being touched. They crave the feeling that they made someone fight the urge to. That their presence alone made a composed man stop, hold back, breathe deeper. And in Stoic philosophy, restraint isn't denial. It's the declaration, I could, but I choose not to. So when you say, you have no idea how hard it is not to touch you, you're saying she has power, that you are standing at the edge. And you're choosing stillness, not out of fear, but out of respect. And it's that very choice that makes her unable to stop thinking about you. It's not the compliment she remembers, it's the man who said it. These 3 sentences you just heard aren't techniques to conquer someone. They are the honest responses of a man facing a woman who shakes something inside him. Not everyone deserves to hear them, and they should not be said all the time, because the right silence can be just as seductive. Women don't live on what you give them. They live on the feelings you leave behind after you're gone. So be the man who keeps her up at night, not because you're too handsome, but because you're too real. Not because you're too sweet, but because you know when to hold something back, just enough for her to crave the discovery on her own. Speak less, feel more. And when you speak, let your words ring like a truth that was never meant to be said aloud. Don't be someone easy to forget. Be the silent note in a melody that she can't stop playing again and again. If this video made you pause for a second, or reminded you of a gaze that once kept you awake at night, drop a dot, leave a comment, or share it with someone else learning how to show up quietly. You can hit subscribe, not because I need another number, but because sometimes in a sea of noisy voices, you just need a place that speaks the right things, and the real ones. Stay calm, stay sharp, and never live like you're easy to forget.